here giving us just enough hope to break our hearts later. But hold on to your overpriced Scuderia merch, because this time, they might actually be cooking. Ferrari wrapped up their pre-season testing in Bahrain with a performance that had just the right amount of pace, drama, and potential heartbreak to keep us all on edge. On the surface, things are looking shockingly good. Strong qualifying runs, Hamilton fitting into the team like he's been there for a decade, and long race simulations that actually suggest the car won't eat its tires for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But wait, there's a catch. Because it wouldn't be Ferrari without one or two mysterious problems lurking in the shadows, waiting to turn Maranello into a crime scene. Let's break it down. First off, Hamilton is vibing with the SF25. After what could have been a rough transition, the seven-time champ is already putting in lap times better than Ferrari managed in actual races last year. He's getting cozy with the car, learning how to work with his engineers, and making Leclerc very, very nervous. The guy is already pushing Ferrari to adjust things to fit his driving style, from brake balance tweaks to custom pedal positions to probably demanding a cappuccino machine installed in the cockpit at this point. But then there's Leclerc. The Monegasque golden boy has been Ferrari's guy since 2019, suffering through years of mechanical failures, tragic strategy calls, and radio messages that sound like a cry for help. Now, he finally has a car that might be a title contender, and they bring in Lewis Hamilton. It's like spending years at a company, climbing the ranks, doing all the dirty work, and then your boss hires a seven-time CEO of the year to help out. Yeah, the tension is inevitable. And that's before we even mention the tiny, little, microscopic issue of tire degradation. Because while Ferrari spent most of testing acting like they've got it all figured out, there's one nagging concern that just won't go away. Those damn Pirellis still don't like the SF25. On the third day of testing, the car suddenly decided it wanted to devour its rear tires like a starving man at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Hamilton was supposed to complete a full race simulation, actually useful data. But instead, he had to box early because his tires turned to mush faster than Ferrari's championship hopes in 2022. And if that wasn't weird enough, Ferrari started acting all shady about it. They covered their garage with screens, left Hamilton sitting around twiddling his thumbs, and basically gave off massive nothing to see here, folks energy. Now, there are two ways to look at this. Option A, Ferrari is actually sandbagging, which would be a refreshing change from their usual hype up the car and then crash and burn by round 3 strategy. Maybe they found something big and they're just keeping it under wraps until Australia. Option B, they have a real problem, but they don't want the world to know just yet. And if it's option B, that's bad news. Because tire wear has been Ferrari's kryptonite for years, and if they haven't fixed it, Red Bull and McLaren will rip them to shreds over race distance. But let's talk about the actual championship battle. Because while Ferrari has been grabbing the headlines, the real boogeyman in the rearview mirror is McLaren. Yes, Red Bull is still Red Bull, but Max Verstappen has a baby teammate this year. And let's be real, that's going to hurt them in the constructors' battle. Meanwhile, McLaren has two absolute killers in Norris and Piastri. Norris is hungry as hell. Piastri is already a stone-cold assassin. And their car? It looks seriously fast. The only real question is whether Ferrari can outdevelop them over the season. And then there's Mercedes, a team that has spent the last 2 years looking as lost as a tourist in downtown Tokyo. But suddenly they've got a rocket ship and a prodigy in Andrea Kimi Antonelli. The 18-year-old just waltzed into his first ever F1 test and put in lap times that made people sit up and go, "Wait, is he actually him?" This kid doesn't know fear. This kid doesn't know failure. This kid might just be the biggest problem for Hamilton and Verstappen that nobody saw coming. So, what do we make of all this? Ferrari looks fast, but tire wear is still a massive red flag. Hamilton is getting comfy, but Leclerc is not going to just roll over and let him take control. McLaren is a legit championship threat. Mercedes might have a future world champion in Antonelli. Red Bull is playing mind games, as usual. This is shaping up to be the most chaotic, drama-filled, no-holds-barred season we've seen in years. And honestly, I'm here for it. And just like that, we're on the brink of what might be the most explosive Formula One season in recent history. But before we even get to the first race, let's take a moment to appreciate just how many fires are already burning before we've even seen the lights go out in Australia. First off, Ferrari. Are they actually legit? Or are we about to witness another classic Scuderia meltdown where they start the season with hype levels through the roof, only to be circling P6 by round 5 wondering where it all went wrong? Everything looks good on the surface. Hamilton's feeling comfortable, Leclerc's happy with the car, the SF25 is setting promising lap times. But there's still this weird undercurrent of anxiety that suggests they haven't quite nailed everything just yet. And let's not forget, this is Ferrari we're talking about. A team that could genuinely find a way to lose a one-car race. Meanwhile, at McLaren HQ, Norris and Piastri are watching all this unfold while sharpening their knives. Because here's the thing, while everyone's gawking at Ferrari and debating whether Leclerc and Hamilton will kill each other by Monaco, McLaren is quietly looking like the real title favorite. Their car is fast. Their drivers are quick, aggressive, and barely make mistakes. And unlike Red Bull, they have two fully functioning drivers who can both score points every weekend. In short, McLaren is the nightmare scenario for Ferrari and Red Bull. And they know it. Then there's Mercedes. Now, we all laughed at them last year. They spent 2 straight seasons confused, lost, and fumbling around with a car concept that looked like it was designed by a blindfolded intern. But suddenly, they might have found something. And even scarier, they might have just found the next Max Verstappen. Because Andrea Kimi Antonelli isn't just fast, he's stupid fast. The kid shows up to his first ever F1 test and immediately starts setting lap times that made seasoned veterans sit up and take notice. I mean, you know you've done something crazy when Lewis Hamilton, who has spent the last 17 years making F1 look easy, starts subtly side-eyeing you from across the paddock. And if Mercedes has actually built a competitive car, oh boy. Imagine the scenario. Hamilton leaves Mercedes thinking they're washed, only to watch an 18-year-old Italian absolutely cook in his old seat while Mercedes starts winning again. That would be one hell of a plot twist. Then, of course, we have Red Bull. Now, normally at this point, I'd be saying something like, well, Red Bull's still the team to beat. Max looks unstoppable, blah blah blah. But this year, something feels off. They're way too quiet. Verstappen's acting like he knows something we don't. Christian Horner is being extra careful with his words. And every time someone asks them if they're still the fastest car, they give the most non-committal answers possible. Which either means, A, they're sandbagging harder than a beach construction project and are about to destroy everyone as usual. Or, B, they're actually a little worried this time. And let's be honest, they should be. For the first time in years, Red Bull doesn't have a dominant second driver. Verstappen will still do Verstappen things. But this time, there's no Perez safety net. So if McLaren and Ferrari really have closed the gap, and if Mercedes has actually built a rocket ship, we could be watching Max fight for his life this season instead of his usual Sunday afternoon cruise. And wouldn't that be something? So, to sum up where we are right now, Ferrari looks fast, but there are still some big unknowns. McLaren is coming for blood. Mercedes might be on the comeback trail thanks to a teenage phenom. Red Bull is either bluffing or genuinely nervous. And we haven't even started the first race yet. All I know is, this season is about to be absolute chaos. Alright, let's take a deep breath because this season is shaping up to be an absolute madhouse. We came into 2025 thinking it was going to be another predictable Red Bull demolition job. You know, Verstappen cruising to his 4th straight title, Ferrari doing Ferrari things, Mercedes still trying to figure out why their car handles like a wheelbarrow, and McLaren maybe, just maybe, putting up a half-decent fight before ultimately falling short. But nope. This pre-season has flipped everything on its head. Ferrari has somehow done the impossible. They've built a car that looks fast, stable, and consistent. Now, I know what you're thinking, but it's Ferrari. They'll find a way to screw this up. And listen, I hear you. We've seen this before. Pre-season hype, promising lap times, and then by mid-season they're launching race strategies that look like they were planned by a toddler with a crayon. But something feels different this time. Hamilton is grinning ear to ear like he just found out he's getting free lifetime upgrades on his private jet. Leclerc looks like he's been locked in a training montage for the past 3 months. And the SF25 is punching in lap times that should have every other team sweating. Of course, Ferrari's biggest enemy is still Ferrari. Because while the car looks strong, there's still a ticking time bomb sitting in their garage. Hamilton versus Leclerc. It's all smiles now, but the second one of them starts taking priority over the other, it's going to be war. The Scuderia has to get this right, or they could self-destruct before they even get to the summer break. If Ferrari is the big question mark, McLaren is the silent assassin. Nobody's talking about them enough, and that's exactly how they like it. Their car is fast as hell. Their driver lineup is lethal. And unlike Ferrari, they don't have an internal civil war brewing. Norris and Piastri are not just teammates, they're a cohesive unit. McLaren doesn't have to worry about egos clashing or politics getting in the way. They can just focus on winning. And if you're Red Bull, that's your worst nightmare. Because for the first time in years, there's a team that actually looks like they can take the fight to Max on pure performance alone. But will they? That's the golden question. McLaren's biggest Achilles heel has always been consistency. They show flashes of brilliance but then have weekends where they're nowhere. If they can eliminate that inconsistency, they're winning races. And if they're winning races, they're winning titles. 2 years ago, Mercedes was completely lost. They went from dominant world champions to a team that looked like it forgot how to build a car. But now, they've got something. And that something is Andrea Kimi Antonelli. This kid isn't just good, he's terrifying. He shows up to his first ever F1 test, jumps in a car that was built for Hamilton and Russell, and immediately puts down lap times that have everyone asking, wait, is this guy already top 5 on the grid? If Mercedes has actually fixed their car, Antonelli might be the X-factor nobody saw coming. And let's not forget George Russell. This guy is still waiting for his moment. He's been patient, he's played the team game, but at some point, he's going to want to take control. If Antonelli is the future of Mercedes, and Russell wants to prove he's still the guy, we could be watching a massive power shift in that team. And what if they have a car that can actually challenge for wins? Then suddenly, Mercedes goes from midfield strugglers to genuine title threats. And then there's Red Bull. Usually, by now, they'd be talking big. Christian Horner would be on his 25th smug interview of the week. Max Verstappen would already be making victory speeches. And Sergio Perez would be wondering if his contract still exists. But this year, they're acting weird. They're too quiet, too careful, too reserved. Which means one of two things. They're sandbagging harder than a coastal town preparing for a hurricane. And once we hit Australia, Verstappen will be lapping the field by lap 20. They actually have a problem. And here's why it might be option 2. For the first time in years, Max doesn't have a real second driver backing him up. Red Bull's whole dominance has been built around Verstappen racking up easy wins while Perez picks up solid podiums. But if Lawson isn't up to the task, suddenly, they lose that safety net. And if Ferrari and McLaren really are this quick, Red Bull is going to be fighting tooth and nail for every single win. Which, let's be honest, is exactly what we want. Right now, we're staring at a four-way battle for the championship. Ferrari has the car, the drivers, and the hype. But do they have the execution? McLaren has the raw speed and driver harmony. But can they keep up their momentum? Mercedes has a potential future superstar in Antonelli. But is their car actually fast enough? Red Bull is either playing 4D chess or genuinely in trouble. And we have no idea which way it's going to go. All we know is that 2025 is not going to be business as usual. If Ferrari delivers on their potential, if McLaren lives up to the hype, if Mercedes really has found something, and if Red Bull finally has to fight for it, we might be looking at the best F1 season in modern history. So let's hear it. Who's taking the crown this year? Will Hamilton and Leclerc survive each other long enough to bring Ferrari back to glory? Is McLaren about to shock the world and take their first title in over 15 years? Is Mercedes about to launch their revenge tour with Antonelli leading the charge? Or is Red Bull just toying with us before Verstappen goes full Thanos mode again? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash that subscribe button if you're ready for absolute F1 carnage. And if you want to know why Red Bull might finally be in trouble,